And here we are. Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Authors Love Bookstores, presented by A Mighty Blaze. My name is Kimberly Hensel-Lorentz, and I'm your host. Here on Authors Love Bookstores, we bring to you a conversation between an author, well, today actually we have two authors, and her favorite independent bookstore to shine a light on storytelling and creativity, essential parts of our culture and our collective human experience. We talk about the books written by our guest authors, and we'll also discuss what makes the independent bookstore we're featuring so special. We hope you'll be inspired to read our guests' writing, buy a book from the bookstore we're featuring, and maybe even visit the bookstore in person someday. I host and produce this show in conjunction with fellow writer Joe Moldover, and we are so glad that you are here. If you're watching live with us on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to post a question or a comment below the broadcast, and we'll get to as many as we can later on. Okay, so I already said we have two authors today, so it makes it an extra special show. I am thrilled with our guests today, and I hope you are as well. We also have a book giveaway, so stay tuned for those details. So first, I am so pleased to welcome author bookseller Emma Straub to the show, and so pleased to welcome author Saumya Dave to the show as well. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest. Samya Dave is a writer, psychiatrist, and mental health advocate. She's published 2 books, Well-Behaved Indian Women, and her new novel, which just came out, which is called What a Happy Family. Her essays, articles, and poetry have been featured in a number of outlets, including the New York Times, ABC News, HuffPost, and many others. She has a passion for women's mental health and wellness. She and her husband founded a nonprofit organization called This Is For Her, which uses art therapy to improve mental health awareness and education for women and girls in low and middle income countries. We'll post a link to the nonprofit below the broadcast so you can go check it out. She is a practicing therapist and an adjunct professor of psychiatry at Mount Sinai, where she teaches narrative medicine. So she's a doctor and she writes novels. And you wrote your novel during medical school.
I did. I wrote my first novel during medical school and residency.
Yes. So yes. Emma Straub, no one's intimidated by that. Emma Straub is a New York Times bestselling author of the novels All Adults Here, The Vacationers, Modern Lovers, Laura Lamont's Life and Pictures, and the short story collection Other People We Married. Her books have been published in over 20 countries. And in addition to all of this, she and her husband own and co-run Books Are Magic, a wonderful independent bookstore located in the Cobble Hill neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. Welcome, welcome, welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Yay, thanks for having us.
So I mentioned at the beginning that we have a giveaway. And so Samya's publisher has donated a copy of What a Happy Family. So if you're watching with us live and you would like to win this book, and you should, because it's a great book, please ask a question of our guests during the broadcast or post a comment. And our behind-the-scenes producer, Joe, will choose a person at random and will announce the winner by the end of the broadcast. Okay, so enough from me. Let's talk about Books Are Magic, our independent bookstore. Samya, you wanted to talk about the bookstore today. What is it about Books Are Magic that is so special to you? Why did you want to feature the store today?
Oh my gosh. So there's so much that's special. I actually could talk about it the whole time. So I'm going to try to just rein myself in. But I started going there when I was in residency. And I was actually at that time working on my first novel, Well-Behaved Indian Women. I was in the midst of nonstop rejections. I actually got rejected over 200 times total on that novel and in trying to get an agent and a book deal. And my husband and I would go to Books Are Magic just to stroll, and then also for their author events. They just have such incredible authors in the store. Over the past year, of course, it's been virtual, but they always have such wonderful, insightful conversations, and going to those really kept me motivated. You know, I think there were times where I considered giving up on the writing process, and we went, one event that actually sticks out was we went to Meg Waltzer's talk for the female persuasion. And I remembered, getting my book signed by her, after she was done. And I told my husband, I think I'm going to keep trying, because just hearing her talk and hearing about her process in writing this book told me that maybe there's something there in my story and I can keep going. At that time, he and I lived in Midtown Manhattan. And then 3 months ago, we actually moved to downtown Brooklyn. So it just feels so wonderful, because we're now in the neighborhood of Bookstore Magic, and it's a place that we can go regularly. We had a baby in December of 2019, and that's his bookstore. So it's just come full circle in so many ways. I really can't say enough about the store, but every time we go in, we just find something new for us. Everybody's so nice and warm, and we take pictures in front of the sign, and there's just so much. So again, I'm gonna calm myself down, because I could keep going on and on about it, but I just love the store, and we're so grateful for it.
That's so sweet. That's so sweet. But so one thing that I want to say about authors and bookstores is that, like, I think that sometimes people who are like aspiring writers or emerging writers sometimes think like, oh, like, the kind of writers who have relationships with bookstores are like, I don't know, like Meg Wolitzer or like Amortals or like, some like famous people who have published a lot of books or sold a lot of books or whatever. And like, I shouldn't bother them. Like, nobody needs to know who I am. Like, I'm just right over here. And that is so not true. And I think one of the things that Saumya did was, like, you got in touch really early. Like, you reached out and introduced yourself and like talked to me, and like, I mean, it sounds like I don't mean to say this in like not in like a calculating way, but I think that, like, I wish that more emerging writers would do that, would like go up to their bookseller and be like, hi, I live in the neighborhood, and like, I'm trying to publish a book and it's hard. Or like, do you think I should write a book? Or whatever it is. Because like, whenever people do that, I just like immediately like scoop them up and like think of them as one of ours, which is how I think of you. Like, I think of you as like, someone who came into the bookstore like with a dream. And then it was so gratifying when you were like, and look, like, this is my book. Here's my book. Like, here it is. It's a real thing. And like, even though, I could claim nothing, no part of it, I still felt proud and like just so excited for you. And it's been such a pleasure to watch you publish books. And so I think like for all of the writers who are watching this, like, please go make friends with your local booksellers. Or it doesn't even have to be your super local bookstore, like with any bookstore you love and care about, because that's like that's the best stuff. That's the best stuff. Like when a bookstore can feel like, yes, that she's one of ours.
Yeah.
Which is how I feel about you.
So it's so funny. Before I said hi to you, after one of the author events at Bookstore Magic, it's so funny the way you started telling us about that, because I saw you after the event and my husband said, go say hi to her. And I said, I can't just walk up to Emma and say hi. That's not a thing. And he said, no, go say hi. And you were so kind and you were so warm. And the first time we met, I was in the midst of the rejections, and you were so encouraging. And it was amazing to be able to see you whenever I would see you again with an update, and you would remember who I was and what was going on. And you were so warm. And I think that really just speaks to also the humanity that's there. When we know our booksellers and we know those people in our neighborhoods who are giving us those things, and we build those relationships and bonds, I think it just brings an aspect back to things that, we've missed for a while, especially over the past year.
For sure. Yay. And we especially like it when you make cute babies, and then like, honestly, I mean, everyone should either like, get a cute baby by whatever means necessary, or a cute dog. And just bring them on in.
Emma, we've had a number of authors who are also booksellers on this show. We've had Ann Patchett with Parnassus, Alex George with Skylark, Jenny Lawson of the Nowhere Bookshop, Judy Bloom and Books and Books. And what's been fascinating to me is that all of these people were authors before they decided to become booksellers. So they knew what they were getting themselves into. Maybe, maybe not. And I'm really curious because you were also a published author before you opened Books Are Magic. Did you feel, or how did being an author prepare you for being a bookseller? Or did you not, like, was it very different than what you imagined it would be? You're falling out of the screen. So.
Yeah, no, I think that, so when I was in my 20s, I worked at Book Court, which was my local bookstore in Cobble Hill. And I loved it, and I was terrible at it. Like, I mean, I was really good at the part of it that Saumya just mentioned, which is like the part that I'm still the best at, which is like, hi, I know you. I remember this. Let's talk about it. I'm so happy to see you. And I'm good at like recommending books. And that was my only job at Book Court. And it's not my only job at Books Are Magic. And I had, I don't think I had any idea what I was getting myself into, even though I called Anne. I mean, Anne was the first person I called when I found out that Book Court was closing. And my husband and I were like, well, then we have to open a bookstore. And I asked her lots of questions. And I mean, Anne is, Anne went to many years of Catholic school and is like, she will give you the straight answer firmly, always. But even she didn't tell me how hard it was going to be. And it has been, it has been incredible. It has been incredible. And the bookstore has been more financially viable and successful than we ever imagined in a million years. And busier, like, hi. Sorry, I'm responding to the chat, which I know is terrible. It has been better than I could have ever imagined, and also so much harder than I could have ever imagined, because it turns out that running a bookstore is not just, chatting with the nice people who come in. It's also like really running a business, which is not something that I was ever interested in. And truly, until I would say maybe like 3 years into the bookstore, it didn't really occur to me that that's what we were doing. And then I was like, oh God. And then I had to start reading like business books and things like that. And I'm learning, and we are learning every day at the store. But yeah, I'm sorry. That was a very long answer. I don't even remember what the question was really. I think the question was like, am I a lunatic for opening a bookstore? And the answer is yes.
No, not a lunatic. We love booksellers. No. The question was, you answered the question. But I am curious though. So this is our 63rd episode of Authors Love Bookstores. We have talked to a lot of booksellers and authors over the past year. And a very consistent message from all of the booksellers has been 2020 was a really hard year. And we had to pivot in order to stay alive. And so, in pivot meaning delivering, hand delivering books to your neighborhood customers, or finally moving online, or doing Zoom or Crowdcast or StreamYard author talks. All these different ways that businesses had to shift the indie bookstores. And so I'm curious, now that we're emerging out of that year, for better or for worse, what practices did Books Are Magic adopt that actually were good for the store that you think, oh, this is a silver lining from the COVID pandemic from a business perspective?
Yeah, I mean, our silver lining is so thick that it's like a whole cloud, honestly. Like it's ranging from the like really like mundane, like which shipping program we used. We use Pirate Ship. That's the one we like. But like, ranging from like things like that to like the way orders get processed and like, who we have doing what at what point of the day, that kind of stuff. We are 1,000% more efficient now. But then even more importantly, that we needed in order to survive the truly crazy months. We went from getting about 10, maybe 12 online orders a day to like 300 orders a day. And it was overwhelming for sure. So that was a huge part of it. But then the much bigger, much more important part of it was that we just like really reimagined our management structure and the people part of it. Like we put into practice just all kinds of supportive structures that we didn't know we needed from the beginning or didn't want from the beginning, because we thought we were like too cool for that kind of thing. But it turns out that you really need that sort of you need structures in place. And I am so proud of our staff and so like profoundly grateful to them for figuring things out and just for helping us move into this new phase, because we are such a better bookstore now than we ever were before. Like 10 times as good, 400 times as good. I'm not the math person at the bookstore.
We're getting a bunch of audience questions and comments, and this is a great question from Margaret. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Since both of you, I know it's cutting my face off, but that's okay. I'm the host. So we talked earlier about the fact that we have a doctor and a bookseller in addition to being novelists and writers. And so Margaret asked, how do you maintain a safe space for your writing practice, especially with running a business or a medical practice on the side? How much do you need to write or edit to feel legit?
You go for it, Saumya.
So I would say writing or editing at all makes someone legit. Okay, just putting words down, whether it's pen to paper on the computer, whatever it is, I think that makes you legit, and I think that makes what you're doing legit. So I think there's just so much power in just taking time for what you feel passionate about and really guarding that time. I think it was Sadie Smith. She wrote this quote a long time ago that I read in med school that said something along the lines of, and I apologize if I'm messing it up, but it said, protect your writing time from everyone, even the people you care about the most. And I really, really love that. I love that idea of protecting our time. I think our time is our most valuable asset. And when we dedicate whatever we can, whether that's 5 minutes a day, 30 minutes a week, whatever it may be, to what we love, I think that it adds up over time. So that was something that worked for me in medical school. I would put it in my calendar that these were my writing hours every week, and they were non-negotiable. So, if social plans or other things came up, they would go to the back burner over the writing time. So that's what worked for me. But I do think people have different styles, and in different seasons of life, there also may be other things that work that may not have before.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, I certainly won't speak for Saumya, but like I think that like there are a million great writers in the world. Like there are people who are like truly brilliant geniuses. And then there are people like me who are just really dedicated to getting the work done. Like I think that there are a million perfectionists in the world, and I wish them luck. But that is not me, because I don't have time for that. Like, I don't have time for that. Like, I would rather, give myself like a weekly page or monthly page count or, whatever, that kind of thing. And like slowly chip away at something, knowing that it's not going to be perfect and that I'm going to have to go back and fix it later. And, oh, I'm changing this character's name to that and it's a mess. And, who cares? Who cares about any of that? Like I would rather just keep going until there's something finished that I can play with and make better. That's the only way. And I would, like, before the pandemic, I would have said, like, that like the people who don't write every day or don't write every week or whatever, were people that I like did not understand. but this pandemic, I was home with my kids alone every day for about 12 hours while my husband went to the bookstore to send out these 300 packages a day. And so I didn't write anything from March until October, really, which is when I finally had childcare again. And like, I mean, I was like a kid set loose in a candy store with like an unlimited budget and an empty stomach. Like I was so excited to get back to work. And then like I wrote a book. I wrote a draft of a novel. I mean, faster than I have in years, like faster than I have since I was like 22 and writing novels for the first time, writing terrible novels that never got published. But because I was just so happy, like I was so happy. And so I think that like, balance is a myth, and so is perfection. Like you just can't, I think there are days for all of us who have, more than one job or are parents or, have whatever other enormous responsibilities. Like you don't get to everything every day. I don't write every day because some days I am just in mom mode and some days I am just in bookstore mode. And that's okay. That's life.
So both of you write books that include families at the center. I'm thinking I recently read both of your books, What a Happy Family and All Adults Here. So I have that in my brain. I'm curious what it is about families that inspire your writing. What is it about that makes you feel creative and fuels your storytelling?
So I actually, my husband's son and I lived with my parents and grandparents and siblings for all of 2020. That was a completely unexpected turn of events because of the pandemic. So my second book actually started out as a book about a woman going through psychiatry residency, and then it turned into a family story. I actually found some of my notes from residency when I was learning about family therapy, and really I had all these things jotted down about how the people we're raised with shape us in so many different ways. And they can help us heal and they can also hurt us. And there's also such a strong pull of the roles that we put each other in. I was so fascinated by the idea, and this happened in my own life, that when we go back home to our families of origin, we can sometimes go back into the roles we were in as children, even if we're going back as adults. And I saw that happening. I was a new mom, and then I was also still my parents' child. So on one hand, I'm thinking I know everything in the world because I've read 2 parenting articles that morning. And on the other hand, my mom's saying, well, I kind of raised you and your siblings, so I might know about this. And so there was such a fun kind of push and pull, and it led to a lot of really, really great learning. So I think in some way, no matter what I write about, whether it's family or not, I think that there's just so much fascination with how people shape each other over time.
Yeah. And wait, can I ask a follow-up question?
Please.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I feel like the way that I understand my characters is by like just like totally feeling around in the dark, that like, I will like think, oh yeah, this woman is like this or whatever. And then like by the end of the book, I'll be like, oh, got it. But as someone who has actually studied how people are and like the ways that we are all damaged in our own unique and beautiful ways. Like, do you ever come to your characters thinking like, oh, I mean, not to diagnose them per se, but just like, do you sort of understand their makeup sort of a little bit more as you come in because of your training, do you think?
I try to. I always try to also think of what their childhood and their backstories were like. And maybe that really does come from the therapist in me who always wants to know everyone's backstory. And so it definitely happens that way with my characters. And I'll often think, well, what happened to them when they were in middle school or high school or onwards that makes them feel this way? Or who treated them this way at this age that makes them feel that this is how they are who they are in the world. So definitely. But your way sounds really fun and interesting. So I want to try that for my next one.
It's easy. You just put on a blindfold and you just start going.
Sounds great.
So this is a great moment to talk about What a Happy Family. The reviews and the feedback have been terrific for the book. Publishers Weekly calls it thoroughly propulsive. Ooh, that's terrific. And then with the Library Journal said, this contemporary Indian American family drama with a strong dose of psychology will have readers rooting for the characters despite their human shortcomings. And I think that's totally true. You feel very invested in the characters in this book. Can you tell our audience what the book is about for those people out there who have not yet had the pleasure of reading What a Happy Family, but will do so immediately after this interview is over?
Sure. So What a Happy Family is about the Joshi family. They're this boisterous South Asian family from Atlanta. And the book really is about what happens to every member of this family after a scandal that occurs at the very beginning of the book. And also how each member of the family is shaped by how they are or are not aware of what's going on with them emotionally.
Mm. And mental health plays a very significant role in this book. And was that a deliberate decision? You said earlier you were thinking about writing the book originally to have a focus on the main character while she was in training to become a psychiatrist. So I would imagine that meant you wanted to dive into mental health when you were.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I think things are getting better, but I still do feel that there is a stigma surrounding just talking about our mental health, you know, whether it's talking about mental illness, mental wellness, whatever it is. And I just want to see more of that in fiction. And a lot of times when I do sit down to write, whether it's for a book or an essay, a poem, whatever it is, it often comes from wanting to read more about a particular subject myself, and then maybe struggling to find a lot on it in that specific genre. So I knew I always wanted to bring that into fiction. I also think that there's so many interesting ways to take that one.
Oh, we just lost your sound.
Did I?
Oh, there you are.
Okay, I apologize. But I think that the idea of also seeing how is each family member impacted by this general theme, and how can it come out in ways that maybe the other ones totally miss, even though they are close to each other and they are in touch with one another. What are the parts of the other people in their lives that they've totally not understood? When my husband and I and baby and I were home over the past year, my siblings and I talked about certain memories from when we were younger, a couple of vacations that we went on as a family, where I thought we had a great time. I thought that we had a wonderful time. And when I brought up some of these moments, they said, no, Saumya, you were really bossy. You told us what to do the whole time. We did not have fun. And so I just found it so interesting that we can look back on the same memories and take away completely different experiences. And we wouldn't know unless we have those conversations.
But are you the oldest child?
Of course. Can you tell?
I mean, I assumed, but I mean, the oldest is in charge. I'm an oldest too. And so this means you're in charge of everything.
I thought you were going to say you were middle or youngest. And I was going to say, I'm sorry, but
okay, no. So I get that oldest.
Yes.
And a sister too, as opposed to like, I have a younger brother, and that's like a whole other story, right? So oldest, sister, you have to be on top of things. The other thing about your book that's really interesting is that we're talking about an Indian American family and the burdens, the challenges of being first generation. So that's not something you see as much in contemporary fiction as we would like to see. So that must also be an exciting opportunity for you to explore your heritage, to profile it. And what has been the feedback from readers?
It's been so wonderful because, you know, growing up, I read a lot from the time my parents and I moved to America when I was a toddler. And I read a lot of Babysitter's Club. I read a lot of Sweet Valley High, a lot of series. Now when I'm thinking about it, they're all series. And I remembered always loving those books and loving the friendships between the characters and their families and all of those things. But I also felt like, hey, none of these characters look like my family or like my family friends. Where are they? And I can relate to these characters who don't look like me. And is it possible that people who don't look like me can relate to characters who may resemble me on some way? I think that, you know, no matter where characters may come from, there can be universal themes in books. So I'd say it's been great on two ends. I think on one hand, it's been wonderful being able to write about South Asians and knowing there's another South Asian work out there. And I hope we keep seeing more and more representation from everywhere, really, with each year that goes on. I think that's something we need because stories are so powerful for all of us. And at the same time, it's been really nice hearing from people who are not South Asian and they say, oh, I went through this as well, or I related to this character because again, I just think that we can all take away something from stories, no matter what the characters look like or where they may be from.
Excellent. Emma, what happens when you go into another bookstore? Do you change all the books on the shelves?
I want to know that too.
Are you like, I can't stand it. I got to like reorient everything.
Well, you know, so as I said before we went live, I am coming to this conversation from my in-laws' house in the mountains of Park City, Utah. And and there's a great bookstore called Dolly's in Park City, and there's another one called the King's English in Salt Lake City, which is nearby. And every time we come here, I have to go. And I guess some people travel without going to every independent bookstore within like an hour radius, but I don't, because that's the only way that I travel. And I went to this bookshop Dolly's yesterday with my 7-year-old, and they had a nice little section of my books, and I brought them up to the counter with the books that we were buying, and I said, "Can I sign these?" And the woman looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Oh no, I wrote them. I'm not just." I'm not. And she was like, I mean, I would have let you, if you were going to buy them, you could have signed them anyway. Like, and I was like, no, I swear. Yeah, no, I mean, I love going into other people's bookstores, because it's all the pleasure and none of the stress. You know, it's so interesting for me to see the decisions, the decisions that other people make, like, I mean, the super nerdy stuff, like about like their bookshelves and like signage and things like that, but also the decisions in terms of inventory and like, oh, okay, so, you know, this bookstore is in the West, in the mountains, so they have like a big sort of Western history section, and it's also sort of a more vacation-y spot. So they have like a fairly large mystery section, a fairly large romance section, and their regular fiction section is like, you know, what I would describe as like, you know, contemporary, heavy, like current, very current titles plus like classics, you know, so like you could buy like my books or you could buy like The Great Gatsby. But you know, like it's just, I love it. I love it. And being in this bookstore just made me realize how much I've missed it this year, where like I'm in my own bookstore all the time. But that's it. Yeah. Oh, and somebody in the chat asked the question, like, when you travel, how many books do you pack? So the hilarious truth is that I am reading this book. I won't say what it is because I'm embarrassed, but I have to read this book for a conversation that I'm having next month, and it's about 600 pages, and I had read about 200 pages of it, and I was sitting on the bed at home, which is where it's still sitting because I forgot it, and so I was like listening to a book on audiobook, and so we had to go to the bookstore because I was like, I only have one book with me right now. Like, what is going to happen? Like, what if obviously I'm going to finish it, and then like, I mean, but I also have like, you know, 25 audiobooks queued up on Libro FM also. So it's like, it's not like I was never in danger of running out, but just like I really did panic, just like at the thought that I only had one book with me. It was horrifying.
One book is not enough.
Yeah, that's totally fair. One book is cause for potential panic. I get that.
Yeah,
I agree. I think you found your people. We're on this. We agree.
I feel safe here.
So I was going to ask this question, and Christina already asked it as well, which is, what are you currently reading? So this is a question our audience loves to know. So obviously, a big shout out for All Adults Here, and What a Happy Family, and Well-Behaved Indian Women, and Modern Lovers. We can go all the books that you both have written. But if our audience has already read those books, what are you reading now? What's coming down the pike, Emma, that as a bookseller you want to shout from mountaintops?
Sure. I'll give just a few. So the one book that I just finished on audiobook, like ignoring my children fully on the airplane, is The Plot by Jean Horowitz, which is so good. Thriller. And Laura Lippman's Dream Girl. I just finished that one on audiobook also. Fabulous thrillers. I love those. The one book that I brought with me is a galley. It's a debut novel called Dava Shastri's Last Day by a woman named Kirthana Ramasetti. If I get her name wrong, I apologize. But that's definitely the title. It comes out in the spring, I think, or in the winter, I think maybe January. I love debuts. I love to read debuts. I love to do whatever I can to boost, people who are just starting out. But I also, I'll just mention like one or two more and then I'll stop, I swear. But I also started reading this Susan Isaacs book called Compromising Positions that's from 1978, because I just I needed a little Long Island murder. And
is that a category in Books or Magic? Little
should be
Long Island murder.
It should be. And then the other day I was on Twitter and I was asking for audiobook recommendations, and a friend of mine recommended the audiobook of Nora Ephron's Heartburn, which is read by Meryl Streep, and it is perfection. It's perfection. So that I will stop. I promise. Okay, Samya, it's your turn. You have to.
What are you?
I have recently read The Other Black Girl by Sakiya Delilah Harris, and I think it was excellent. It's funny and smart and a very quick read, actually, which I wasn't expecting. And it's different. It's unlike anything I've ever read. So hats off to her for that debut. I thought it was excellent. Last month, I read this in one day, so I do feel the need to give a shout out to it. The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. She sent me an advance copy of it a couple months before it came out, and I just ignored my child. So maybe the standard is if you can ignore your child, it's a book that you can't put down. I think I've learned that now. So those two books were excellent. And then The Tiger Mom's Tale was released by Lynn Lau Butler just yesterday, actually. And it's a beautiful tale about identity and belonging and being from different cultures.
I think these are suggestions for the bookstore. A section called Long Island Murder. And right next to that, a section called Books That Will Cause You to Ignore Your Children. I think that one would sell out quickly, actually. Says every mother.
I can picture that, yeah.
For sure.
So writing during the pandemic is very difficult. But Emma, you told us earlier that you wrote a first draft, so it clearly is possible. What are you both working on now? Will we see, are there other books on the horizon that we will be able to enjoy?
I'm working on my third book, which is about new motherhood and startup CEO and founder and how she navigates running her own company and then also being a new mom. I'm just halfway through the draft right now, so I will definitely keep you posted when it actually resembles a real story. Right now, it's just a bunch of events thrown together, and I'm actually, speaking to our point, trying to figure out her backstory and what makes her her.
Oh, excellent.
That's exciting. Good for you. I'm impressed that you've already this book. I mean, this is this is actually something that I always tell writers to do, and I don't always take this advice myself, but Saumya is obviously very smart and has done this, where when you have a brand new book that comes out, that you have to already be working on something else, because otherwise it's so easy to just spin out and to lose yourself in the, like, you know, stress and anxiety and book promo stuff. So good for you. I'm happy for you that you're doing that. That's very good. I have a new book that should be out next summer, I think. I don't know.
Exciting.
It's a bit top secret now, but yeah, we'll see. Stay tuned.
And you both, that's exciting. I am going to put that on my calendar to keep an eye out for both of those books. And I know our audience will as well. I'm curious what it's like for both of you to have launched books during this pandemic. Like, definitely, you can do an author event from Utah while you're on vacation, right? So that's a perk. But there are downsides as well. What's been the part you've missed, or the part that you have benefited from? What do you look forward to next year when the next book comes out?
Are there any benefits, Saumya? What do you think?
So I only know launching books during a pandemic. I actually don't know the other side of it. Both of my books came out during the pandemic. So in a way, maybe that was good, because I don't know what it could have been like otherwise. But I will actually have to say, and it feels perfect for this conversation, that I did my virtual launch at Books Are Magic for both my books. And we were actually in Atlanta with my parents when my debut came out. But because the book was in the store, I had all of my friends here actually go into the store and take pictures of the book in the store all the time. So it was actually really nice being able to see that. And people were also able to order from the store because they were shipping. So I felt like I was still able to share that having an event in the store type of experience, and having friends get a book from the store vibe that I really was hoping for because of that.
That's nice. Yeah, let me just tell you though, once you publish a book that's not in a pandemic, it's going to feel so much better. I mean, it's such a bummer. It's such a bummer. And I say that, like, as, like, I had, by all accounts, a perfectly good publication experience during the pandemic. Like, everything went as well as it possibly could have. But I going back to the ignoring your children part category, one of the great things about book tour is that you get to go, sometimes if you're lucky, you get to go somewhere else by yourself. In a hotel,
quiet room.
Yeah, where no one can touch you, no one can scream your name in the middle of the night. And that's, to me, like, the two major perks of book tours are sleeping in a hotel room 100% alone and going into other people's bookstores. Like, those are, and I love those two things so much. And so I cannot wait to do those things again.
Jenna Blum, was the founder of A Mighty Blaze, is watching and weighing in that the other good thing is room service.
Yes.
Very true. So Emma, we always ask the booksellers this question. Please finish this sentence for us. You can do it.
Oh my God, it's a quiz. Okay.
Running a successful bookstore is part hard work, part luck, and part what else?
Pizza.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a first.
That sounds perfect.
Actually, carbohydrates, tomatoes have some nutritional value, dairy. Okay, excellent. Love it. And I need to announce the winner of the giveaway because my producer is concerned I'm going to forget. So Sharon Carlson Person, congratulations. You have won a copy of What a Happy Family. So please email us at amightyblaze@gmail.com and we will coordinate getting that to you. Ladies, I could talk to both of you for the longest time. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's such a pleasure to get to spend time with both of you. We're very excited for your books. I highly recommend them. Wonderful reads for the summer. I mean, vacation is coming. Perfect time to go order some books from Bookstore Magic and order your books. And to our audience, thank you so much for being here. If you liked today's show, and we hope that you did, please subscribe to A Mighty Blaze on Facebook so you can get notified about all of our other events, or hop over to our website, amightyblaze.com, to subscribe to our newsletter. Join us back here next week for another episode of Authors Love Bookstores, though next week we'll be live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time instead of 4 for scheduling differences happening next week. And of course, be well, keep reading, and thank you.
Yay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.